Hi, this is Neil again. Here we are again, in your house again, with more of this wonderful 7-week course. I'm excited about this course, and I hope that you are too. It's really fun to do this. It's fun to create it with you, and it's fun to watch you, involve yourself in this extraordinary process. At the end of all of this, we're going to give you an opportunity to have your own conversation with God and to really understand what it means to connect with the divine, to live your life. So again, thanks for joining us for lesson number 4. The title of this lesson is Completion, Identifying Your Unfinished Business. This is by far the most powerful aspect of creating a new relationship with life, which is what I hope that every one of you is going to be able to do. This powerful aspect is completion of one's unfinished business. This takes enormous personal courage and a willingness to be totally transparent and utterly visible to oneself. It involves the letting go of past disappointments, angers, frustrations, and resentments, and lack of forgiveness of both yourself and others. Often people find that unconsciously they don't want to release these negativities because who would they be without them? Who would you be without your story? How would you justify your reactions and your behaviors? How would I justify mine? When we finish with lesson 4, I intend that you'll be able to be adept at identifying without hesitation, without shame, and without any guilt, all emotional incompletions or hurts in your prior life, including hurts that may have been imposed on you or hurts that you may have imposed on others. I hope as well that you will see more clearly than ever before the true goals of your life, including not only the goals of body and mind, but finally, and for many people at last, the goals of your soul. I want you to fearlessly be able to identify the fears that have driven your life to this point and how to dissolve those fears one by one using the wisdom of the soul as well as the mechanics of the mind in a dual process. I hope you will learn what the soul seeks to experience, what the soul seeks to achieve, what you seek to create through your soul during this your present lifetime. For many students, completion brings them to a place where they identify their soul's reason for coming to the body in the first place. Such identification of the soul's agenda for many people produces a rush of new enthusiasm, new excitement, new inspiration for the living of life itself. Suddenly, life has a purpose with which their heart and soul can at last agree. So let's get to it. Let's get to the teaching points of lesson number 4. And the first teaching point is identifying emotional incompletes and hurts. Now, when I mention or when I talk about emotional incompletes, what I'm talking about, of course, is any item, issue, event, occurrence, happenstance, anything that's gone on in your life that you feel incomplete about, that you wish, Let me give you an example. I'll just give you one from my own life. I had some things happen with regard to my father. No terrible things. There was no terrible abuse. I was lucky in that way. I had a wonderful father and a wonderful mother. But there were just some items, hanging out there. And one was, and I wrote about this in my book, Friendship with God, which was, as you know, autobiographical. I wrote about what my father did concerning my piano. I was a piano nut as a kid. I loved the piano. And it turned out that I had perfect pitch. I could go to the piano and play any song without ever seeing a note of music. Not that I could read music, or being instructed on how to find the keys. I could just go there and find them. So my early piano teachers or music teachers in school said, "He's got perfect pitch. He can do that," and that was a nice gift to have. So I would go, and my mother bought a piano for us. She went out and bought a little $25 upright. In those days, $25 was a lot of money. It was a used piano. Brought it into the house, and I plunked on that piano every day. I was just doing 1 or 2 fingers at first, but I was, finding those songs, right? Well, my father put up with that for around 4 weeks, and I loved the piano. I didn't have a lot of friends. in school. I was kind of a wimpy, skinny guy, and I couldn't do the football thing or the baseball thing or play a lot of sports. And so the piano was my best friend. It really became my refuge and my best friend. I would sit there for hours after school. Well, it was more than 4 weeks, but it might have been 3 or 4 months. But finally, my dad said, I can't handle the banging on the piano that this kid is doing every night. So one Saturday, it was during summer vacation, as I recall, I woke up on a weekday morning and I heard banging and pounding downstairs in the dining room where the piano was. And I didn't understand what was happening, so I ran down there, and my father was tearing the piano apart with a crowbar, and he was going to get it out of the house. Well, I of course was devastated. I couldn't believe that he was doing this. You know, he hadn't asked me, he hadn't said anything. Of course, I'm 9 years old. I guess fathers don't ask their 9-year-old sons whether they can do something, but I didn't even know it was going to happen. I started crying, went to my room, didn't come out for a couple of days. My mother was bringing food up there. My father finally forbade her to do that. I finally had to come out, but my father came in first. Before I came out, he came in. I guess my mom talked to him and said, Alex, you gotta go. Gotta go talk to your son here. This isn't going down too well. So my dad came into the room and he said, you know, son, he said, I didn't think it meant that much to you. He said, but I promise you we'll get you a small piano, a spinet, that we can put right here in your room, and you can play to your heart's content, and it won't, you know, bother me so much, making so much noise and taking up so much of my audio space, you know, in the house. I said, okay. It's a long story, isn't it? I don't even know why I told it, except I wanted to give you an example of what I mean by unfinished business or incompletion, because my father never got that piano. I know he meant to, but they never could afford it. I found out years later that I waited to my birthday, you know, it didn't happen. I waited to Christmas, it didn't happen. I waited for every possible event, you know, that could be a gift-giving occasion, and it never happened. So I realized that, oh, I get it. It was one of those promises you make to, you know, get things to quiet down, but it never happened. And I carried that unfinished business. I carried that incompletion for many years. When my father was 82 years old, I brought that up to him. Of course, by then was a grown man. And I felt I could talk to my dad directly. And I said to him one day, do you suppose we could talk about something? He said, sure. I said, let's talk about my piano, the piano that I never got. He didn't know what I was talking about. I mean, he remembered the piano, of course, but specifically, he didn't remember having made that promise or having broken it. He said, really? Did I promise that to you? And I never delivered? I said, well, that's right. He said, well, I'm really sorry. I said, well, you know, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I've held on to it for a long time. Not just that I didn't get the piano, but the larger issue, which was you made a pretty big promise to me, and you didn't keep your promise. And daddies not keeping promises to sons, when it really means a lot especially, is not a small thing. Because I learned more about life than I wanted to learn there. I learned not to believe promises made by people who love you. I also learned, in a kind of reverse English kind of a way, that maybe it's okay for parents, for fathers, to make those kinds of promises to their sons. You know, they mean it when you say it. But you say what you have to say to get past the moment, huh? And then if you don't keep the promise, well, you tried. See, you learn a lot of lessons you learn at home. That's an example now. Thanks for indulging me that long story. But that's an example of what I'm talking about when I talk about incompletions. So what I'd like you to do now is to look in your own life. I'd like you to get out your notebook, your course notebook that I hope you're keeping after these lessons. And I'd like you to write down in your notebook, make a list of incompletions just like that. I gave you a little long story there so you could really understand what I mean by an incompletion. And it doesn't necessarily have to be childhood, by the way. It could be something that happened in your adult life, in your relationship with your wife or a former spouse, a former husband or whoever. It could be any kind of a event, you know, an occurrence that you don't feel complete about. So I'd like you to make a list in your notebook right now. Just take the time. Take a little moment to do that. Get out your notebook and write down incompletions in my life. And maybe list, let's say, 3. I'm sure you can think of 3. I could think of 30, but and they can be small ones. They don't have to be huge events like my piano event. They could be small incompletions, but still incompletions. Stuff I feel incomplete about. Maybe somebody at work made you an offer to help and never came through. Maybe the guy next door never returned your hacksaw. Maybe the lady around the corner said she'd come over and play bridge with you one day and didn't do. Whatever it is, whatever it might be, big or small, okay? Make that list now. And it might even be fun to turn off the lesson right now. Put it on pause. Yeah, we're going to try that. We haven't done that yet in this program. But now we're in lesson 4. Let's use that device as well. I'm going to invite you right now to hit the pause button, write down 3 incompletions in your life, then come back and we'll be right here. Good. Now, thank you for coming back. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. I hope that didn't put you in too much of a bad mood, by the way. Thinking of incompletions can sometimes, not put us in the greatest mood, but it's okay. It's good. It's growth work. Growth work sometimes can be a little bit uncomfortable. So we have to go to the edge of our comfort zone, huh? But that's okay. So now, in your notebook, I'd like you to, if you left some room to the right of that on your page, I'm going to ask you to write some things down. If you didn't, make a new list and leave some room on the right. I'm going to ask you to divide your page into 3 columns. Put your 3 items in the column on the far left. Then in the middle column, I'm going to ask you to write something, and then in the far right column, I'm going to ask you to write something as well. This is a process that I do a lot on paper that I call the 3-column process, so you'll see me doing that a lot. It just helps us sometimes to organize our thoughts, to just get our thinking together around something. Okay, now in the left column then, you've got your 3 items, your 3 incompletions, whatever they might be. In column number 2, I want you to write down next to the first one, what it would take, don't do that. I jumped ahead of myself. Why I haven't felt it possible to complete that issue so far. That's what I want you to write down in column number 2. Why have I not felt it possible to complete that issue so far? What stopped me? For each of those 3 issues, just identify why is this still an incompletion in my life? Why don't I just, wrap this up and get it over with? Am I afraid to bring it up with that person? Am I afraid of what's going to happen, with me? Am I still so angry about it that I can't do it in a civil way? Is my resentment so furious that I'm unable to deal with this appropriately? Or am I afraid of them and what they might think? What is it?